Good morning and welcome to the End User Tools presents Boxtree Moth data collection using the ArcGIS Field Maps application. I'm Jenny Sauer. I'm a member of the End User Tools team, and I'm a mobile solutions specialist here to take you through this training this morning. So welcome and thank you for being here. We have a pretty good group here already, and I've had you fill out a preparedness poll for me just to kind of let me know where you are as far as preparing for collecting data using field maps. And I see some of you are just finishing that up, so I'm going to give you about 3 seconds to go ahead and finish that poll. Put in your votes. You can choose multiple options, which I kind of like. And your options are whether you were studying survey protocol, maybe reviewing how to use the device. I wrote iPad, but you might be using an iPhone or other device. The new Field Maps app training, maybe other things, or just being here is also a pretty good start to training. So I'm going to go ahead and end that poll. And it looks like many of you have taken advantage of quite a few of the aspects. In fact, many of you have dabbled in all of those possibilities as well as being here. So that's really great to see. I'm going to show you how to find that if you haven't been able to prepare fully yet. And you can kind of circle back and make sure that you're really feeling good and confident about collecting data in field maps for Boxtree Moth. All of that said, I'm going to post another poll for you because I know there are two kind of categories. Well, maybe more than two. Some of you are collecting for PPQ, and some of you are collecting specific to New York State, and some of you have some other states that are kind of collecting trapping information, or maybe others that I don't know about. Maybe there's some other things there. So just to get a good view of what's going on there. And then before we really get started, just to make sure you know you're in the right spot, we do actually have a few different ways to collect data on Boxtree Moth that are official data collection tools using field maps. And we have the developer here, Rick Chubb. Rick, would you mind unmuting and walking us through the options available to users?
Okay, good morning, everyone. Jenny, what we have is one national map that is meant to be used only by PPQ staff, and in those states that do not have a known population of Boxtree Moth, which essentially is every state other than New York. In New York, they're a special case because they do have Boxtree Moth. And so we've developed a separate set of maps for them, and we're working directly with PPQ staff as well as the state cooperators in that state. In Virginia, they're a special case because PPQ and the state are dividing the work, and they're both doing early detection trapping. So we have developed a separate map for them, but they can share it and see each other's work. As far as I'm aware, there are no other states in which both PPQ staff and state cooperators are trapping for Boxtree Moth. Now, if I'm wrong about that, and you're aware of a state where the work is divided that way, similar to Virginia, then you need to contact us and let us know, and we'll set you up appropriately.
Thank you, Rick. I could never have said it so concisely. Thank you for doing that. And I am revealing the results of where everyone felt that they fell into those categories as you've just explained them. So that hopefully will kind of show you who's here. So I want to let you know that as Rick's just explained, there's a few different maps and some special cases. I like that you called them special. That's nice. Today, what we will do in this training, and it's going to fly pretty fast, and that's why it's important that you're a little bit prepared. And some of you may have noticed it's being recorded. So I will show you how you can review this training again if you need to. either as a review or if someone missed and needs to see this training, it will be made available. So today we're going to use that the National Early Detection Trapping, that national map, to demonstrate how to enter data in field maps. And once that's complete, because that applies to everyone, including New York, even if you're special, then everyone who has that part of the training and only needs to collect data in the national map where there is no known positive cases in the trapping surveys can then be excused. And New York, if you would like, I can show you your special map and go through the visual side of your surveys after we've covered that. So the first bit, we'll use that National Early Detection Trapping map, and then New York, if you want to hang on for a bit, I'll show you the visuals. Of course, we'll have time for questions. This is supposed to be a half-hour training. It will probably go over. I'm just going to say it right now because I want to be sure that New York feels supported on visual trapping and that we have time for questions. So I will stay longer. You will be able to leave when you would like to once you've received the training you need. That's what we'll do today. So all of that being said, I want to show you a couple of resources. These are really important. I'm going to put them in the chat box. If I can get back to chat. Okay, so you have 2 links in the chat box, and I'm going to show you those on screen right now. And please, if anyone needs these again, feel free to copy and paste them again. Sometimes I get distracted once we get going and I don't notice the chat, but I'm going to do my best. But please feel free to help me out on that side of things too. So the first link there is to this mobile data collection tools website. The top half of the website is all documents that will support your training, and the bottom half is all videos that will support your training. There's a lot of videos here. We have foundational training on field maps itself. There are 10 little videos, so you can kind of take it in bites, little bite-sized pieces of training, and come and go, come back and review something if you've forgotten how it works. We have little explainer videos that talk about all kinds of little things in brief. And this category for PEST program is where the training we're doing today will show up. Give it about 5 days to a week to show up here. You can see there's previous training using the IFAS data collector. This is from earlier in the year. Actually, this is from last year, but got rebooted this year. So this training on using field maps for 2022 will show up here in this category for you to review. So that's a nice little spot for you to look for new video training. As far as documents, you also have a user manual under this general training documents specific to field maps. So if you like a user manual to go to, you can refer to that, use the videos, come and go on the manual itself to make yourself feel comfortable with field maps. The PEST program specific training documents is where you will find categories for all of our national PEST programs that have applications configured. There's box tree moth. Here we have a national early detection trapping quick reference and manual, and specific to special New York, we've got a New York version with the quick reference and user manual. So make sure to avail yourself of these resources, and I recommend bookmarking this URL for yourself because there are updates and constantly growing training support here. So use this website for that. One more thing is the training events calendar. And I want to point out, some of you actually may have come to this meeting this way because we actually post all of our training and the links to join right here. So here's today's training. But I want to point out this End User Tools office hours, which allows you to pop in and out as if it's an open door, as if you've come to visit one of us in our cubicle and, hey, do you have a minute? I have a question. So use this office hours every Monday at 11 o'clock Eastern. So if you're not on Eastern time, do your calculations, but I think most of you are. 11 o'clock Eastern for an hour, anytime during that hour, use the link to join, come in and ask a question. So if you find that we don't cover something here today, this is a resource for you every Monday. Of course, you also can reach out to us at any time. All right, so that gives you hopefully your best bet for getting started and referencing back where you need to. So what are we going to talk about today? Today, we are going to talk about field maps a little bit. It is a new app to all of us, and we're all at different stages of feeling comfortable using it. It is something that we'll talk about a little bit. And then we also have, two separate URLs in order to sign into field maps, depending on what you're doing. So if you are recording official data, it is the USDA MRP Enterprise URL. And training maps are held in a staging portal with a different URL. So we got to make that really clear for you. We're going to talk about the disconnected workflow. If you're able to disconnect using an iPad, that is preferred, and we'll talk about the workflow a little bit. We're going to talk about just some basic trapping workflow and how that works in the data form within field maps. We'll look at the data form, and we're going to talk about some things to be especially cautious of. So that's a lot for today, but it's going to go pretty fast. Starting with field maps. What is field maps? Many of you have probably already started diving into this based on the poll from earlier, and started to feel comfortable with understanding what field maps is. There was an introduction to field maps. There's those videos in the user guide. I highly recommend you review them. Just take a moment. The full course itself is about an hour if you do all the videos in a row, and you don't have to. So you can kind of little at a time just really digest that training. So please make that useful for yourself so that you feel comfortable and confident. What is it? Well, Esri, the company that creates these mobile apps that we like to use so much, formerly had 5 old applications listed here under this old application column. And some of you probably recognize some of these. Most likely, many of us have used the collector application. It's the ArcGIS collector app. And Field Maps is based upon the foundation of collector. So if you used collector, it looks really just like it, with additional features pulled in from these other apps. So all of these 5 apps are being joined into one robust data collection app called Field Maps. And right now, I will tell you, if you've used Collector in the past or any of these apps, our group, our end user tools group, configuring the application for use to collect data on BTM has gone really easy. They've tried not to make anything too complicated and keep things very intuitive for you. So please don't let that worry you, but that's really what Field Maps is. It's just kind of pulling all these features into one little app. When you open Field Maps, like all of these Esri apps, you are presented with something similar to this screen. You have these 2 options: to sign in with ArcGIS Online or sign in with ArcGIS Enterprise. And PPQ applications all are housed in ArcGIS Enterprise. So we're always going to pick sign in with ArcGIS Enterprise. That has FedRAMP moderate security in place. It allows us to input data that is sensitive, and that is the choice you will always pick on this screen. And on the first time that you sign in, you're always going to get an option here to specify a new URL. And then here, this is an example of coming back to it. It kind of held on to the URL for me. So if you've signed in previously by tapping that sign in to the ArcGIS Enterprise, you will then now have something that looks like this, where you have an option to tap on the previously entered URL. But the first time you enter a URL, you're going to choose specify a new URL, and you're going to manually carefully type in this URL. So what is this URL that we're talking about, this web address? Well, as I said, there are 2. And this top one is the official data collection site. This official data collection site here, you can see kind of, I'll give you a little box here, MRP is what's your hint. And this is the USDA MRP Enterprise Portal. And this is the one that you want to put in when you are entering official data for Box Tree Moth. But we also like to be able to give you something to practice in. And those are just direct copies of the map held in the official data collection site for you to practice in. They actually are a little bit different. Usually the base map is a little bit more dull. There's no imagery. And you'll see in the title of the map in all caps the word training right at the beginning. but they are held in a different, under a different URL. And this is where the caveat comes in, because you see the little difference here? It's not a whole lot of difference, but we have maps-stg and then .mrp. That's the difference between the two there. And that STG stands for stage. So think of it as a staging environment where this MRP portal is a production environment. So if you are in a training map, which we would love you to use to practice, to demonstrate, maybe have some little play time to feel confident. In fact, today we will use a training map to demonstrate to you how to use it. If you are in a training map, you cannot record official data, and vice versa. If you flip the coin, you don't want to play or record data that is not real or official in this official portal. So you want to keep these straight. And the way to do that, just be sure you're in the right, signed into the correct URL. So I'll show you what that looks like while I'm signed into the stage portal. But if in doubt, sign out. That's a great thing to remember. If you are in doubt, sign out. Do not record official data in the training maps, and do not record practice data in the official enterprise portal. The disconnected workflow, we're probably mostly familiar with this if you're local to PQ, because our iPads are not usually given a data plan, and we do use the disconnected workflow out in the field. The Field Maps application is specifically designed to operate in disconnected mode, which means not connected to Wi-Fi. And the way that that's done, it takes a little bit of prep time. Again, there's a video on how to do this. There's actually several videos out there on how to do this, but you would connect to Wi-Fi well in a reliable network, maybe in the office. Some of us are in hotels when we're out in the field collecting data. Download a map area to the device. Then you can disconnect from Wi-Fi, go on out there, collect data, and then once you return at the end of the day, connect back to Wi-Fi and synchronize that data. We like to recommend that data sync at the beginning of the day too, just to make sure that you are completing synchronizing your map with that online hosted map service. It both brings data into your map and pushes your data out. So make sure that you start the day with the most up-to-date map, and that you've updated that portal too. And that synchronization allows for reporting tools and monitoring services and decisions to be made on your data in almost real time. Basically, at the end of the day, when you've uploaded your data that you've collected, that's updated every reporting tool, and everyone with access to that map can see that information. A couple of workflows are really just very standard to a trapping survey. This is kind of the basic workflow as far as the terminology sort of goes with how we enter data in the ArcGIS Field Maps application. The first visit to a location we call placing a trap, and it is inferred in the data form that when you have visited a location, you have installed a trap. And that's inferred by the installation date field. You fill in an installation date, that means you've installed a trap. And that first visit to the location, the placing a trap, places a point, your geospatial or GPS point, on the map. So that is what gives you a symbol on the map. And then all future visits we refer to as trapping activities. And you record those in a separate table that is referring to that one point where you placed the trap. But there's a couple of other workflows that sometimes get a little tricky for folks. Sometimes you have to relocate a trap. At the end of the season, you often have to remove traps. And sometimes there is an active or inactive status involved. So basically, where people are tripped up, let me tell you how this workflow goes. So you would first want to enter two data points into the original location. First of all, your trap activity, the last trap activity, should be that it was removed, right? So you want to enter the trap activity remove, and then you want to update the trap status from active to inactive. And then you kind of, imagine walking down this dotted line to the new location with that trap, or possibly a new one, and you go ahead and you start the process over by entering data, placing the trap. What a lot of folks think when they remove a trap is that they should see that symbol, remember when you place trap, you have a symbol on the map. They think that that symbol might disappear, but that is actually not the case. And it's very important that recording a remove as a trap activity does not remove the symbol on the trap. It's important to data capture. In fact, that symbol then on the map, that one point, holds all the history of that trap site, and the last activity should be remove. So that's the correct thing. The history of that trap location is recorded and retained there, but the actual symbol should not be deleted. I'll try to walk you through that. In fact, let's have a look at my iPad. This is a PPQ configured iPad, and I use it a lot for testing, so there's a lot of things going on with it, but basically a PPQ iPad should automatically have currently these field survey apps installed. And in order to open field maps, just as you would any app, you're going to go ahead and tap field maps. And field maps likes to take you back into the last map that you were in. So I'm going to go back twice to that main map menu. And again, I want to make sure I am sharing with you a training map. And some of you might already be seeing so many maps that start with the word training, which is a very good tip off that I am in the stage environment. If I needed to sign out, I would go to this profile, skim on down to sign out and tap sign out. I know that I'm in the staging environment because I see this group, PPQ End User Tools Training group, which is available to all of you. You can join it yourself, and there's a document that will take you through that process. And I see that this group is here, which would only be in the staging environment, called PPQ EUT, which is my group, End User Tools Training. But I've also downloaded quite a few offline areas, and all of these maps are titled training, and all of their thumbnails have training in bold text, or as big as we could get them, right there. So I already know I'm in the right portal right now to share these maps with you. And as I promised, there is a New York, let me use a pen here. There's a New York trapping and visual map. And today we're first going to go into this BTM National Early Detection Trapping map. So I'm going to go ahead and open that and open the downloaded map that I have sitting here. And you can see I've played a little already. I've got some points on the map. And a couple things I want to point out are these options along the top. We have first this is our sync icon. I want to open that and show you that my auto sync is not enabled. And that is a really important feature if you are out in the field. We don't want sync to happen automated when the device feels it's got a connection. The biggest error that happens with synchronization at the end of the day is a poor Wi-Fi connection or an interrupted Wi-Fi connection. So you want to make sure that when you decide to sync your data, that is done on your decisive action, that you have decided that manually. And so at the end of the day, when you have items to sync or edits to sync back, you need to press that sync button. We don't want that auto sync on. Secondly, this is the layers icon, and if you press that, it'll show you what layers are available on the map. You can see that the BTM trap sites for this year is automatically enabled, and there is a markup layer which is not. This markup layer is a new feature to field maps, and I'm going to show you that here in this 3-dot or overflow menu. You have a couple of options here. Well, first of all, you have a legend, which might be helpful to you. So that will show you what these symbols are indicating. So we've got a yellow circle for active and a red X for inactive trap sites. And that will show you all of the symbols on the map for all of the layers that are currently active or enabled. So we know we have one layer enabled, and those are the symbols that indicate what those mean. Secondly, the markup layer. So this markup layer really is a layer for marking up. It really is like a little notebook layer for your device. And I'm going to go ahead and open it. You can see I've got a couple of markings on this map already. I can think of some ways that it could be very useful to you. For instance, I've marked a little spot here, which would be a good lunch spot, a nice shady park. for when you're out there trapping, this neighborhood's got a really nice little lunch spot. This is another option here. You can kind of quarantine off an area. And I just said well, I meant to put ag field probably, but at field, maybe more trapping needs to be done here. I've done that here as well, where it's a little public access trail and a farmer's ditch, maybe more trapping here. So I could see how you could write lots of notes and use this layer nicely. However, a big caveat that I want to throw out there is the markup layer, number one, is not an official data collection layer. It's not official, so don't put anything important in this layer. And number two, this layer lives on your device unless you share it. And I've got this markup layer opened and I am currently connected to Wi-Fi. And so I'll show you this share button gives me, I could either take a screenshot image of just this page, or I could share the entire markup layer. And if I do that, it does give me the option to upload the layer to ArcGIS Enterprise. This will share that layer with a default name that I can rename to the stage portal, which is where I'm signed in. So it can be shared. I'm not going to do it today, but it can be shared. But two things, not an official data layer and really secret to your device unless you share it. So those two things keep in mind to the markup layer. In order to add data to this trapping map, you start by tapping this plus button. So you want to add data, tap the add button. And that opens the first question, which is whether the trap is active or inactive. I'm going to go ahead and say active, and that opens the data form. And the data form has a little group of optional fields here, which are closed up or minimized. And if I tap that optional street address line, I can get all of those fields which are optional. And fields that are required are indicated by this little gray asterisk or star after the field name. So we saw previously in the street address fields, there was no star. There's also a comments field here with no star after it. So you must fill out those with that asterisk. Those are required fields. And some of them kind of give you some hints. I'm going to go ahead and fill this out. You would fill this out according to survey protocol. I'm just going to fill it out according to Jenny protocol because I don't know it. But you would want to fill this out according to that protocol. I'm going to just go ahead and make some choices. I'll call it a park for the sake of demonstration. And I'm going to say that's good. Some of you are already probably saying you missed one, Jenny. I see it. But I want to show you what happens. This submit button here is active. And so I can go ahead and tap that. And if I have missed a required field, I will get messaging for that. It says it's unable to submit, one attribute failed. And I can go ahead and view that if I want to, but I've also received a little red indicator here. This one's required and you have to fill this out. Okay, so that's a good hint. I'm going to go ahead and tap install date, and that gives me a calendar. Now this is one that I get messed up all the time because my fingers just get active on the screen and I could maybe hit something weird. It is restricted. If I go back a few months, it is restricted to the year. You can see I can't pick anything in December except for that last day. And let's say I pick a wrong date for some reason. In order to get today's timestamp, I can just tap this today. You can see it jump me right back to today. And another thing that this app lets you do is close this calendar view up. You just tap it again and that closes that calendar, which I like to do because I don't want to mess it up once I've got it. And once you've completed all of this, I'm going to go ahead and write test in here just to make sure that that is clear, that this is not a real point. Once you've completed that, I always recommend go back, make sure you've completed everything correctly. Actually, what I'm going to do for the sake of the demo is move this point away from where I am so you can see it better. And I'm going to hit update point. I'm in my basement, but I am somehow still meeting GPS accuracy, which is being updated up here. It needs to be within 30 feet and I'm doing fine, which is just amazing for this little device, but here I am. And so everything's ready to go. I'll hit submit. And now that was the step of placing a trap. And to follow any future visits on that, you would need to select the trap site itself, which is done by tapping it. And I know it's selected with this blue halo around it. And then I can add a trap activity either by tapping this link icon. Let me straighten this out, or by scrolling up to find that link icon, and it's titled BTM National Activities. And I can see that I've previously monitored this trap, but I will add an activity. And there is the trap activity table where I can say, let's say we replaced the lure this time. And I'm going to put in my name. Again, the date is today, and I'll close it. I'm going to make sure that this is labeled as a test point and submit. So now I have visited this trap and added another trap activity. Let's go back to that relocate workflow, so that if I was going to relocate this trap now, I would have to record 2 edits to this to the previous or the original location. That would first be to do a trap activity as we just did. Let me add one here, which would be the activity type of remove, right? And secondly, and I'd have to submit. And then secondly, I need to update this so that the trap itself is inactive, which means I need to go back to the main data form. I go back one more, where we have, am I on the main? No, I'm still in the, see, you got to go back quite a bit to the main data form where we have the trap status field, and we want to edit it, which we can do either by tapping this pencil icon or scrolling up to edit, which opens that data form to edits. Now we want to be careful when we're in edit mode, but all we want to do is change this status to inactive and submit. So now we've seen this little symbol change from the active symbol to inactive, and the last trapping activity is remove, but it didn't disappear from the map. And now we go ahead and walk ourselves to our new location and hit this plus sign and fill out the data form to place that trap. One thing I want to point out that wasn't there previously, we have a little dot added to our sync button, and that's a little indicator that we do have edits sitting on my device that need to go out under that out arrow. So that's a nice little hint that tells you it's time to sync when you get back. You do have edits sitting here. Some caution areas quickly. Make sure again that you are in the correct URL, that you are putting official data in that official site, and using the stage portal for training or practice or play or demos. Be sure to use the disconnected workflow if you can. That submit button will fail now rather than being grayed out. It will fail and it will tell you what you're missing if you have missed a required field. Be careful with your data collection. I know I'm speaking to the choir. You have experience doing this, but it's always a good thing to repeat. Just to be careful when you fill out a form, take that one more extra look at it to be sure that you've got everything entered correctly before hitting submit and before syncing that data. The daily data sync, we can't stress enough to keep yourself current, both your map and that hosted map service. And the markup layer, again, remember the 2 roles. It's not an official data collection layer, and it really just lives on your device. It's like a little diary. I would love to hear how some of you might use it if you do start using it well. This one's very important. We've gone through a lot pretty quickly on how to use the trapping survey, but you might still need help. And you do have a National Operations Manager for all things survey protocol. Turn to Russ. For New York, I know Mafalda is taking the lead, and so turn to them when you have any kind of survey protocol needs. If you feel like extra training or more specific training would be helpful, you should go to Russ to request that. iPad issues, you want to open a ticket with CEC IT if you are PPQ, that's who supports our iPads. And portal access, you kind of want to use this hierarchy. Go to your supervisor first. Your supervisor has a couple of other options there. They can go to a local field GIS specialist that supports the area. And this email here is really important. They can go to this email address and with questions, but this is also where supervisors If supervisors are on the line here, supervisors, this is where you need to email to be sure that your users have access to these correct maps. So the maps are shared in groups, and you want to be sure once your users have portal access that they are added to the group so they will see the maps they need. So this email, supervisors, is where you want to go to make sure that you have named the users to be added to these groups. You can do that ahead so that they have access early and they're ready to go. Anything training, remember that website? Hit that website, but also contact us if you need anything at all. And remember, you can come into the End User Tools office hours every Monday and ask questions as well. I also gave you a link to a quiz, and I normally show you that quiz early on. I'm sorry I didn't, because you're totally welcome to take it as I talk. You're also welcome to take the quiz as you watch the video later, if you want to review it. But the important part about the quiz is the third question in asks for your email address. And if you put that in with care, you will get an automated email response saying you completed this training. So that could be very helpful for your supervisor. Maybe you just like to save that aside to say, I completed this training as a little accomplishment on your list of accomplishments. So what did we talk about today? Whew, a lot. We talked about the new app, Field Maps. We talked about delineating the 2 URLs that you use to sign in. Be very careful that real data is only collected in that MRP sign in, not in a training map. The disconnected workflow overview. We talked about trapping workflows a little bit. We had a look at the data form, and we went through some caution areas for you to be careful of. At this point, this is your training for that the national level early detection trapping map that you'll use in Field Maps. I want to ask if there are any questions, and then I would go ahead and say you can take off if you want. And then I will jump into New York's version of the map, which also has a visual aspect. Any questions? Someone asked, what does a little blue box on the right of the fields you have to fill out on the point do? I noticed it goes away when you enter something. That's a good question, Patrick. Let me see if I can figure out what you mean. I'm looking for a blue box.
Next to site name, you see that little
Oh,
I don't know,
yeah.
it kind of looks like a barcode, and I don't know, it just looked different, and I just was curious.
So I don't believe this is enabled, but if you do tap on that, it has the ability to either scan a barcode, like you said, so totally right on, or take a photo. And that's only if the field has been enabled for that. So you see the first question I get is, can I have access to the camera? So that is an option. It's a feature within the application itself if it's configured. I don't believe these are. I believe that you want to follow survey protocol to name the site according to the survey protocol.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Good question, Patrick. I've never had that question come up. People don't always notice everything. So thanks for that. Aaron?
Hey, Jenny. Thanks for this training, first of all. I just had a quick question. So when you're adding users to the group, is there any way that I can go and check to see if they have the correct access before I reach out to you?
Well, the easiest way would be the user, and the best way I would say is ask that user to see if they have access. It's a good thing because then you can test that they are able to find it. So for instance, if I go back, I'm just gonna go back to this main page in my device. I know I have access to this group, PPQ End User Tools Training. I know that because it's here. If I was not a member of this group, it wouldn't show up there. And you will have the same view if you go to the desktop and type in the same URL and sign into your user account, which is how your users might start their process to get a portal account in place. So it's a good practice. I would say, my preference would be to ask the users to do that part. It lets you know they know how. It lets you know that they are looking for it. And if they don't have the group listed, that tells you they are not a member of the group.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Aaron, this is Rick. There's no easy way for you to view the members of a group. I don't believe you have that capability in your role as a field worker. but you can send me all their names in an email to that web or to that email address that Jenny showed you. And I'll just double check to see if they're in the group yet. If they aren't, I'll add them.
Okay, great.
And I
Thank you.
will, yeah, and then if any of them do not yet have a portal account, I'll let you know that too.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Rick. Yeah. So I brought that back up again. So this is the email address. I got another question here. I opened the training URL on my phone and no map show up. Why? Brian, I'd say you need to be a member of that group. Again, I will take you back to this web page and let's go back to the main one. It's pretty easy to join a group. You're going to need to do this from a web browser. Okay, there we go. And it's actually under General Training Documents and Field Maps, Access Training Maps Job Aid. It's really not as hard as it sounds. It's only one page, but that'll take you through that, Brian. So, so again, it's all here, but I know it can be tricky. Another question, are all instructions, directions written down in a manual and is it available? Yes, we want the manual for box tree moth, remember? And that's here under Pest Programs, box tree moth. And here's your manuals. There's the National Early Detection Trapping User Manual, and here's the one for New York. Just to give you a little teaser, there's all of the steps that you should take. And you can see here on the left, we've got all these steps here with screenshots and all kinds of things. So yes, hopefully. And again, if you have questions, even though you have these tools here for you to support you, come into the end user tools Monday meeting or contact us at any time. But again, try to use this workflow where you go to your supervisor and kind of work through this hierarchy first. All right, you can keep them coming. What I want to do is share the New York map. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, but keep them coming in the chat or feel free to raise your hand or speak up. I can get distracted while I'm I have to kind of turn my view to the iPad, but feel free to keep them coming. I'm going to go ahead and show you the New York trapping and visual, which I also have downloaded previously in offline area. So I just want to show you the difference. I'm going to open that up. It's pretty similar. You can see we have all the same buttons. The application behaves the same. The layers button here is a little different because we have our main trap sites layer, which is defaulted to on, and then we have New York visual surveys, which is off. I'm going to turn that on so that I can show you then next the legend. So I'm going to show you what that legend is. So for both of these layers, the trap site layer is the same as the national layer. It's got an active and inactive symbol. You can see I've been playing around again. So you can see examples of all of these here. And then the visual surveys layer is collecting data on whether it is a negative visual or a positive. And so you see that we've got a blue or a purple diamond indicating those symbols. So other than that, the layers are the same, except for we've got that additional visual layer. And in order to add data, we're going to add data using this add data point. And in this case, we have an opening question with all of the choices. So we've got whether we're going to record a trapping survey, whether it is active or inactive, or we're going to record a visual survey and whether it is negative or positive. So your first choice is, am I recording a trapping survey or a visual survey, and then whether it is negative, positive, active, inactive. So right away, this is your first question. I'm going to choose, since we're really talking about the visual survey, a visual survey to record. The active, inactive options will show you the same thing you've already seen. I'm going to choose positive for the heck of it. And it immediately symbolizes it. I'm actually, for the sake of the demo, I'm going to move it away and update that point over here so you can see that. It did immediately give that symbol a place on the map, and it did that right over me where I am, and automatically defaulted in the answer is yes to being present because we said it was positive. And then we've got questions that are not required. You see there's no asterisk there. And as I scroll down, there's a couple of required. Was the host present? And This one and one other are conditional questions. So if I answer yes or no, if I answer no, it lets me move on. If I answer yes, so I'll do no, and then I've got no difference here. But if I go ahead and say yes, you see a bunch of these more fields popped in here. What's the primary host and secondary host? Those two kind of popped in because I said yes. So that will happen. Again, I don't know survey protocol, so I'm answering poorly, I'm sure. And then the agency field here, I'm going to go ahead and say that I'm with APHIS. I'm going to say Jenny S. Again, we have a survey date field. And again, we have this same calendar issue, which we've already gone over. I'm going to make sure that's today and close that up, and survey comments. And I'll say test just to make sure. So there is that conditional field, the host present. And I believe that's it. Rick, was there another one? Let me see, I had a note somewhere on that. Go ahead,
No,
Rick.
Yeah, what I wanted to say, Jenny, is since BTM is present, you must answer yes to one of those life stages. They can't all remain no.
Okay.
Now, there's no way to enforce that in the form. So it is possible to make the mistake of leaving them all no, but logically one of them must be changed because you've indicated that there is box tree moth.
I'm so glad I made that mistake so you could bring that up then. Yeah, so if obviously this hopefully would come up with survey protocol discussions, hopefully would come up with your own logic. And when you've completed a form at the end, you know, when you're reviewing it, well, how could there be a BTM present and none of these have the answer of yes? So hopefully that would be logical to you, but now you've had it said. I'm going to say there's an egg present. So then, you know, we've looked over our form, we've checked over the logic for it. The point is kind of off center. It really wouldn't be, you would be standing right on top of it. And then I can hit submit. And as you can see, it's pretty intuitive. It's really a simple survey, but it comes down to that beginning question as the difference for whether you're doing a trapping or a visual survey, and then whether it is present or not. Rick, since you are here, I'll ask, is there anything else you would like to show or would prefer shown on the New York special map?
No, I think you covered it all, but I do want to point out to those who are not from New York that visual surveys are only being done in New York. And that's why we don't have the visual survey layer on the nationwide map or the Virginia map.
Yes, thank you. Perfect. Are there any questions from you all on this New York map? Can we see the initial PPQ survey page? There are some applications there I don't see on my iPad. So you're talking about the iPad home page, I think? And there are some applications here that you don't see. So if this is a PPQ iPad and you don't see one of these survey applications, you would open a ticket with CEC to obtain them. It means you probably need an updated configuration. And the other option is, do you need them? You know, if you aren't collecting data in eTrap, you know, I don't know that that's really that important, but you do want to make sure that you have the updated configuration. So whether you need it or not, if you're not seeing any one of these apps on this screen, then I would open a ticket with CECIT and anything iPad related, but that's very PPQ specific. So if you are not PPQ and you have a device that you are using, all of these apps are available free in the App Store. It's true, you never know. Thank you for bringing that up. Any questions on the New York aspect of collecting data for BTM?
Are we going to be able to see each other's points?
That's where that data sync comes in, Aaron.
Okay.
I'm in Colorado, so I'm not going to see anybody's test or reel, and no matter what. I know you're not collecting in Colorado, so I'm not always the best example of the map. But again, this sync button, this sync process is a two-way process. It both brings in the data on that hosted map for your area that you have downloaded and pushes yours out. So right now, because we've just done this one little visual survey, I do have data that needs to go out. You don't get an indicator on what data needs to come in. And that's why we really strongly, it's one of the reasons why we strongly encourage folks to do that data sync in the morning before going on out to collect data, because it does update the map on your device. So if you've downloaded a map area on your device, this map area, and I'm zoomed in, but I've got a map area. It's really only that bit there of Colorado. So this map area is going to get updated both in and out for the sync. So that's a long answer for yes. I'm sorry, but I just want to explain that sync. The reasoning behind that sync feature is that it is a two-way sync. And so the morning sync is really important if you need to be sure that you know where everyone else is working or what happened the day before. If they're working offline, you are not getting immediate updates, and that sync is not enabled for auto sync, but you will get it for the day before's work.
All right, thank you.
Does that help? Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I just want to thank you all for hanging with me, but I'll just leave you with, please reach out if you need help. I will leave you at that and let you have the rest of your day. And thank you so, so much for being supportive participants. Thank you very much.